Next up, a very special guest, Miss Ginger Grant, Miss Power BI extraordinaire. So welcome to the show. You have a website and a presence called Desert Isle Desert Isle SQL SQL.com. Would you mind talking about your website a bit and give us an idea of what this is all about?
Well, thanks very much, Rick. My website's basically where I post a lot of technical information that I've either found while I was working on or I find interesting. It's kind of all over the map. I've done Excel, Power BI, machine learning, frankly, whatever interests me technically at the moment. R, I'm getting into that. So whatever I'm interested in is what ends up on my blog. And I try to blog at least once a week.
So interesting then. Maybe an episode or two ago, Jordan and I were talking about the past business analytics marathon that we did, a webinar marathon. And as we scrolled down the list of people who were speaking, your name was one of them. And Jordan told a story about how you were one of his trainers. Jordan, would you mind reminding us of that?
Sure. So when I was working for Ernst & Young, they said. This makes me sound so terrible, but I had to sit. They were like, and I didn't know Ginger at this point. They were like, you have to sit through this Excel training. I was like, me? Sit through an Excel training?
How dare you?
Right. And it was in Alpharetta, Georgia, which I hadn't even known existed. But so I went down there and I met Ginger, and turns out we knew the same people, and Ginger actually taught me a lot of things I didn't know. So she was an excellent teacher, and I'm glad that they. I had to sit through that, but that's actually how I met Ginger, and then we both were on that in that marathon, as was Rick. So I thought, oh, this is just a weird coincidence.
And to be honest, I was really intimidated after I found out who you were and you're in my class. I'm like, oh, geez, what's the point of this?
No, you had some good stuff. There were things that I did not know at all. I really, at that point, had very little Power BI background, so I learned a lot.
Well, I'm glad.
So a bit of pop culture reference that Sylvia's brought our attention to, and I'm sure you hear it all the time. Ginger is the Ginger Grant, of course, pop culture, one of the Gilligan's Island, the movie star in Gilligan's Island, TV show, pop culture thing. So I like that your website is named DesertIsleSQL.com. Or for a 3-hour tour. Would you mind talking about the evolution of your blog and how that all came to be?
Well, to be honest, I was thinking of putting one up, and I was trying to do something memorable and not really long. I have a friend who's got a blog that is his last name and solutions and tech and Nick, and I just thought, I want something kind of catchy, and someone's like, well, you do have your name. I'm like, oh, that'd be so cheesy. And they said, no, I don't have any artistic skills whatsoever. They're like, well, you don't have to make it look like Gilligan's Island or anything. I'm like, oh, well, then I can do it then. So I just have something you can remember if you are of a certain age. If you're millennial, chances are it means nothing to you.
Ginger, is your blog, is it real, or do you kind of delve into other tangential topics?
Yeah, I've done a lot with Excel because Excel is where people are doing a lot of data. Excel is the single largest data store in the world. Microsoft says, it depends on where you look, either 1 billion or 500 million users. What I think is awesome about Excel is that no matter what the technical capability, everybody knows Excel. So it's kind of a good starting point. I mean, you tell somebody, that you're a computer programmer and their eyes glaze over. And then you mention that you teach Excel. They're like, oh, Excel, okay. And then they can relate, and people start warming up who don't have anything to do with anything technical. One of the things that I think is great about what Microsoft has done is with Excel is basically bring people into a lot more interesting data-related topics just based on the fact that everybody knows Excel.
Sure. So can you, because I know your blog probably started out as Desert Isle SQL, but you've branched into many other topics. So can you talk about maybe the evolution of that? How did it go from SQL into this sort of data generally, and how it touches Excel or R, machine learning, things like that?
Well, it's kind of a reflection of where I'm at. I started out, doing .NET, and I'm not very good at front-end stuff, so I went quickly into the back end, and then I just kept on going back into data. And so I've done a lot with data and SQL, and so that's kind of where I started. But from there, I realized it's really not. I mean, everything you put into a spreadsheet is really data. And everything that you're trying to get out of a database, the same thing. And then you have to give it to somebody in a format that's meaningful and useful. Well, that's all Excel is. It's meaningful groupings of data in a way that people can understand it. Well, that's the goal of any database, too. I mean, having data in a database is worthless unless you can pull it out and give it to somebody in a way that makes sense to them, and that's what Power BI is. R does a lot of that. Machine learning, again, it's analyzing data. All this gets back to really the same thing that Excel does, which is kind of an interesting thing. And frankly, I dropped SQL, but hey, I paid for the website for 5 years, so I'm keeping SQL. But it's really gotten a lot bigger than that. It's just wherever you happen to store data and whatever you happen to do to analyze data. And really, Excel is where I think all of it started, but it's branched into a lot of other things. One of the big things about Power BI is its ability to tell a story through pictures, because a lot of people are really picture-oriented, and the data that you present in a spreadsheet just doesn't do it for a lot of people. So that's what Power BI is, and that's what R is to a great extent. It's making pictures of data, analyzing the data. So it all relates, at least in my mind, and on my blog.
So when you said you started with .NET, so at that point you probably called yourself a programmer, I imagine. So what's the name of, since data is so new, what is the name of the thing that you do right now? What would you call it?
Well, I like calling it data science, but that's way too highfalutin, and I don't really think I have the background for that, since I don't know enough stats, I would say yet. But I basically think I do data analysis and presentation. And it depends on whatever source it comes from. I mean, I've done some stuff with Hadoop. Again, just another giant store of data. Excel, it really doesn't I don't think it really matters. It's just the tool that you're using to give people data in a way that makes sense to them. And what I do is trying to make sense of people's data. Whether I put it in a cube or whether I put it in an Excel spreadsheet, or both.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your day job right now? Where you were training Jordan. So in addition to smart aleck people in one of your training classes, what is your day job? What do you do day in and day out?
Well, I'm a consultant for Pragmatic Works, which is a little company out of Florida, and I do training. I'm teaching a class in data science for Pragmatic Works in April. I've got another Excel class scheduled sometime this year. I don't remember when. And when I'm not teaching classes, they actually send me to clients. A couple weeks ago, I was at a client in Rochester, New York, freezing by the way, teaching them how to take their Excel spreadsheets and put them into Power BI. This week, I'm working on an SSIS package that takes data from SQL from Oracle to SQL, so they can do analysis for it from using the SQL application. So I basically do Microsoft data pretty much wherever it happens to be lying around for various clients who are willing to come the time with Pragmatic Works.